How are you?
Good. I'm doing so well. And first of all, I love to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Close. My last name is Sirley.
Sirley. Okay. Got it. Thank
No
you so
worries. I respond to both.
much. Christiana, first of all, what I love, a lot of us read the email last night, giving a short bio of who you are, but tell us a little bit about yourself in the way that feels right to you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I am beaming through from Miami. I am also an early riser, but a little bit different time zone than you all. So I am not sure which bio you read this morning, but I am a success coach. So what that means is I empower high achievers to grow their businesses without stress. And the reason I came to this work was out of personal need. I am a high achiever myself. I'm a former college athlete, very successful in my past corporate sales career, and just ended up finding that the level of stress and burnout that I was constantly teetering on the edge of was not sustainable. And so I've been doing coaching about 10 years now and really blending practical business strategies with intuitive navigation. So, how do we bring the practical business aspect while also bringing in the flow? And so I see you nodding. And the closest that I have come to what I do, if you've ever seen the show Billions, there's a
Yes.
character on there named Wendy Rhodes. And that is the closest to what I do, if you've ever seen that show, minus some of the personal drama that she has in her life.
Oh, that's so great. I just started thinking about watching Billions again, and I know exactly, I mean, when you said that, that really did summarize up what you do. Well, tell us a little bit about younger you. It sounds like you have been a high achiever since you've been a youngin. Tell us what that looked like when you were younger.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very athletic family. I'm the oldest of three girls and just was very into the sports world. I played field hockey, lacrosse, swimming, basketball, everything you could ever imagine. And actually, I don't even know how many state championships I won in those sports. I grew up in Ohio. And same thing carried over into academics. I ended up going to Vanderbilt University where I graduated with honors, played Division I lacrosse there. We went to the NCAA tournament. So I've always been very active, very interested in high achievement, but also the team nature of things as well.
I love that. So, tell me a little bit about your relationship with your siblings, because I have my theories about being the oldest.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest too. So, tell me a little bit about your relationship with your siblings.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have two younger sisters, and I think being the oldest is very unique. We often hear that the oldest has more pressure, and I think in some ways that is very true. And recently, actually, was reflecting on this same question as well, because I was wondering, why am I personally very interested in achieving? And obviously, it's because of my parents to a large degree. That was sort of expected growing up, but also being the leader of the children in my family. I had two younger siblings that were looking up to me, and I felt a lot of pressure to be a role model for them and be someone that they wanted to strive to be. And so I don't know if that's similar to your theory, but that's been something I've had to work through of, okay, I don't always need to achieve just to please others. Is it something that I also want internally? And in my case, yes, it is, but there are different angles of going about that that are different when you're trying to lead someone else's life.
So true, so true. Tell us a little bit, tell us about when you went to college, when you were, younger, you in your 20s. What is it that you wanted to do? Like what were your dreams as this high achiever in terms of like the future for you? And then tell after that, I want to hear about how things shifted for you as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think similar to what I work with a lot of my clients on, I think sometimes we are high achievers, but we don't always know what our dreams are.
Mm.
And I was definitely in that camp. I graduated with two majors because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. Both of them ended up looking back being very human behavior, psychology oriented. But in retrospect, I wish I had had someone to help guide me and say, hey, these are your interests, follow them, instead of maybe saying, oh no, I need to do this because everyone else thinks that this is where I'll be good. And I was successful in corporate sales, but I sometimes reflect on, oh wow, I've always had this sort of psychology angle to my interests. So definitely that's something that I saw in college, that I was always interested in human behavior. How do we get teams to work together? If someone on the team, you know, that quote, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So, how do we bring that weakest link, which may not be the weakest link, but in our perspective is, and really unify and create this cohesive unit? And that carries forward into my life today with family, with teams that I work with. And how do we get everyone on the same page and pursuing their own unique dreams?
Mm, that's so good. So when you started realizing, hey, I'm really good at what I do, but maybe this isn't what I want to actually do to earn a living.
Mhm.
What was that point? Did it come from like what was the moment? Like what was that moment? Was it a breakdown moment? Was it a moment of just insight? What was that moment for you?
I remember it wasn't one moment to the next, but it gradually was building. I won a national award and I remember walking away with it and being like, why am I not feeling fulfilled by this success that I just achieved? And I realized that I needed to do something different. So I actually went back, got a master's degree in public health, and
Wow.
started transitioning my career more into this wellness coaching space. And then it's been an evolution from there. I was doing corporate wellness consulting for many years, where I worked with organizations on how do we get our employees to be more active, to eat better. And even that wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing, because I, like, again, was very interested in the mindset. I
Right.
love the meditation this morning, the quote that you shared, because that's a lot of what I'm very interested in and practice as well.
Oh, that's so cool. So, and I have to share with everybody that you're Ben Moss, who's the head of the sports and entertainment division at Compass. You're his wife. And do you coach your husband?
How do I answer that?
Yes. How do you answer that?
I would say in many ways, Ben and I are a collaboration. He is actually the person that introduced me to meditation way back when. If you've ever spoken to him, as I'm sure you have, he shares that his stress led to lack of sleep, which led to him discovering meditation. And at that time, I wasn't interested in that world. And he really turned that on for me. And then there have been many ways that I have coached informally him, because I've been with him as he's grown his business from, you know, still being successful on his own, but to what he is today. And so I think, does he pay me for my coaching? Maybe in some ways, but yeah, and that's what I think makes us very unique as a couple, actually, is we really live and breathe this work. When we go on dates, we talk about books we've read, we share different meditations practices, we strategize on different ideas, we're always sending podcasts back and forth. So Yes, I would say we both coach each other in some way.
That's lovely. I love that. And yes, somebody called out that I said you're his wife. It could be he's her husband as well. So thank you for that. That's a really good catch, actually. So tell us about how when in your career thus far, in your life thus far, did you decide, like, I'm ready to start coaching? What did that journey look like? And then how did you decide, like, who I really like to coach and who I really like to see, to share my guidance with is real estate agents? Tell us how all that played out.
Mhm. So I started coaching initially around wellness specifically and not as much business. And then as I started attracting clients, I found that a lot of my clients were business owners and entrepreneurs, executives, CEOs, things like that. And so that's when I really started bridging this wellness, mindfulness, meditation work into the aspect of business. And that's also where, being married to a real estate agent for the last 11 years, I have a particular passion for them because I share an office with one. I share a home with one. I actually worked for a real estate education company in a prior iteration of my life. So I definitely have an interest in agents. And I think agents are really unique because they chose to come into this career because of the unlimited income potential and also the desire for freedom, the opportunity to be their own boss, to make their own schedule. And what many of them find is that it very quickly becomes a 24/7 career. And I think everyone on this call probably knows someone, or maybe you are that person that is very successful financially, but yet has lost sight of the personal aspect of their life, maybe the relationships, maybe the wellness, the fitness, that kind of thing. And so that's really what I'm interested in is how do we have a successful business as a realtor where you can work every moment of the day on your business and yet do that without sacrificing ourselves.
Oof, it is so hard. One of the reasons I got out of being a producing agent personally and moved into the sales manager role was because I had a moment where my husband actually said to me, if you keep coming home this way, you're going to really hurt our marriage.
Mhm.
And that was like a huge aha to me. And I was one of those people, Christiana, who was in the wellness realm. And yet I was not able to find a way to have the success in my career and also have the success that I needed for my well-being. So I can't wait to hear more about how you work with real estate agents and giving us some of those tips because boy, have I been there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think everyone probably on this call has
Mhm.
been there and is there as well, because it's something that you deal with. You could work every single moment of your existence if you wanted to, and
Truly.
there'd still be more.
And the thing is, I think if you are one of those high achievers, sometimes it's just so natural. Like there's almost like for me, it was, I didn't know when to stop. I didn't know how to stop myself. I would have this energy and I would go until I burnt out. And then I would go into burnout and then I'd come back on the other end. Did you go through that yourself to understand this about us?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I
What did it
went
look
through,
like for
yeah,
you?
I was in a corporate sales position. So while I wasn't commission only, it was bonus driven and very incentivized in that way. And same thing, I would find myself sending emails at 2 o'clock in the morning and getting up to make a call to a client at 6 or 7 and all of that. And I was able to do it successfully for a while until I wasn't. And then it was just, I don't think anyone would have looked at me and said, "Oh, you're burnt out, you're frazzled, you're fried." But I felt it inside and I felt it reflect in not having the energy to exercise, not wanting to spend time with people, just really wanting to stay in bed and relax because I just couldn't have that energy when I wasn't working.
Oh my gosh, so true. I want all of you out there listening, tell us in the chat where you're at in terms of on the scale right now of feeling really good about your harmony between your life, your well-being, and your work. Where are you on that scale? I'd love to hear from all of you. Share in the chat. Christiana, tell us a little bit about what you did for yourself first in order to strike more of a balance.
Yeah. The first thing I think in any change is recognizing that there is an issue. And I think sometimes we don't want to be aware of that. And it was the same way for me. I said, you know what, this is not a motivate it's a motivation problem. I need to be working harder. And so I actually started pushing even more. Oh, I need to, get a better system, and I need to have different ways of doing something so that I can be more productive. And again, that worked for a little bit, and it ultimately led to even more burnout and being more tired and feeling more frustrated and stressed. And so it wasn't until I one day woke up and said, I just can't keep doing this anymore. And I think that for everyone is different. It looks different for each person. And for me, it really was just, I'm not happy and I don't feel fulfilled and I can't continue doing this. And so I really had to identify that and come to terms with it. And then I could take the steps to change, which for me did involve a significant amount of self-reflection and meditation and taking, not a physical step back from my business, but more of a mental, let me look at this from a higher view because I'm so stuck in this day-to-day nitty-gritty. What do I want to accomplish in my life? And how do I take these steps to get there one step at a time?
Mm.
So that
Oh,
was really for me what started it.
it's so good because there are so many times where you can't really step away from your business, but you can, like what you said, I thought was so important. Maybe not stepping back from your business, but taking a step back mentally so that you can see the forest through the trees and get a little bit unstuck from where you are.
Yeah.
So is this something, tell us a little bit about, let's say I'm a real estate agent and I come to you and boy, can I express this. You know, I'm doing all the things. My business is really good, but I feel like I just want to hide under the covers. I feel like I need to sleep. I'm so exhausted. I'm not my best with my clients and I want to show up as my best self. Where do I start? What do I start with?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the first thing is really stepping back and saying, what are your dreams? As
Mhm.
adults, we often stop dreaming. And that's a question I often ask my clients is, when did you stop dreaming? Because we forget that without a dream, or some might call it a vision, we don't know what we're working for and what we're working towards. And so we start with connecting in with that bigger dream, those bigger visions, the I want to travel to France, or I want to build a new house, or whatever the dream is for each individual person, identifying what that is, even if that something feels so impossible right now. For example, Ben and I years ago decided, we live in Miami and Miami's very hot in the summer. And we said, we don't want to be in Miami in the summer as much as possible. And at the time, it was not even remotely something we could consider because I was working in corporate consulting at that time. He's obviously a real estate agent. And slowly we've been able to build this life where we're able to take time away from Miami and still run our businesses successfully. But 5 or 10 years ago, if you had said we would be doing that now, it would have been like, there's no way that this could be possible. But so getting back to what I think the first step is really understanding, what is that dream for you? Maybe it is having a second home somewhere, maybe it's having more children, whatever it is, identifying that. Because if you don't know where you're going, how are you ever going to know when you get there? And
Right.
so we need to identify first, what's the destination? And often we don't want to dream because we think, oh, well, what if I don't get there? People will judge me, or what if it changes? And that's okay. We can decide to change that as well as we go.
I think something that really was an aha moment for myself was I wouldn't, as younger me, I wouldn't let myself dream because I would always say, well, what if my dream changes? But the reality is, of course, our dreams are going to change because we change. So I love that you're saying it's okay. Like, just look at what it is that you are looking for, whether that's the vision, the dream. And I also think I talk to a lot of people who talk about um, I'm in the gap, like, and maybe for that person it means I'm an empty nester, and I really don't know right now what my dream is. Well, then that's your goal, right? To figure out what the next dream or vision is. So I love your response to that. Um, tell us a little bit about how you found your dream and vision in all of this. How did you unravel your
Mhm.
life and go, ah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, well, so for me, and this is what I recommend to my clients too, it's really just starting with writing down everything that you've ever thought you might want.
Okay.
And that can be very small and it can be big, but it takes a little bit of time because we've often not allowed ourselves to connect with what it is that we want. And so for my personal process, I'm a big journaler. I love to write things down. That's how I get out of my own mind. I tend to be analytical and over analytical if I don't do those types of practices. And so it's just constantly having a list of, oh, I'd really like to go to Italy this summer. Oh, in next year, I want to do another triathlon. Like all of these things that sort of just come in as pings, writing them down in like a dream journal or something that works for you, maybe a note on your phone. And for me, that was the most effective process, is just getting all of these little things that I might want to do out of my mind and onto paper, and then stepping back and saying, okay, these are the ones that I want to do this year. These are things that maybe are in the future. And working through that. And sometimes in some cases it was, I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know 10 years ago that I would end up being a coach for real estate agents, but it's evolved as I've gone through. And that was another thing you'd mentioned, Emily, was I see a lot of clients sometimes changing their goals so that they can achieve them,
Uh-huh.
because they don't want, they want to cross it off the list. We all love crossing that off. And so sometimes they'll downgrade their goals because they'll know, oh, I can do that. And so really keeping it in integrity and saying, dream as big as you can.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Dream as big as you can. I'm looking at the chat and I'm called to uh, connect with Laura Foreman, who wrote when I said, tell us where you're at right now in your life. And Laura said, struggling honestly, the ups and downs are hard. And Laura, oh my gosh, do I hear this like every day from real estate agents because there are so many ups and downs. What have you seen, Christiana, with your clients in terms of handling or being able to, the way I think about it, and I would love to hear from you, but the ups and downs, like perhaps surfing the waves or diving underneath the waves so you don't have to take every wave. What have you seen that's really worked for your clients, or what have you helped them accomplish in terms of the ups and downs of life and real estate?
So first of all, I honor you for sharing that, because that is a huge thing to even speak. And so a couple of things. The first thing is, it's not all about, okay, I'm on the up, tomorrow I'm on the down. It's really, is your trajectory up and to the right over time? And so knowing that we are going to experience these ups and downs as we go, but overall, are we moving in the direction of our dreams? So that helps you sort of take a step back from this day to day, rise and fall that we feel, oh, this deal blew up. Oh, now it's back together. Oh, it didn't appraise. Oh, wait, it did. All of these things that we deal with as agents. And it also releases that attachment to the outcome, because if we get so tied to the monetary impact of a lot of these ups and downs, it can be very, very emotional and very difficult to navigate. And so tying that into having an abundant mindset where you say, hey, you know what? Actually, one client of mine had a buyer, or a seller rather, he's been working with for 5 years. The seller says, oh, I'm selling now. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to sell. No, I'm not. It's just been up and down. And finally, he said, okay, I'm going to list. And when he wanted to list, the price was, it was a $10 million house. The man wanted to list it for 12 million. And my client said, you know, really, I'm not going to list this until you're willing to be more reasonable. Okay, fine. And so then the next month finds out the client listed the house for 8 million. And so this is a very meaningful commission to my client. And so the first response was, oh my gosh, negative thought. This is the worst. I've wasted 5 years of my life doing this, doing that. And we reframe. We say, you know what? First of all, we don't know if it's going to sell. There may be another chance for you to get back in the door, but keeping your vibration high and saying, okay, this happened. Something else is going to come. And
Yes.
he was able to say that, as difficult as it is, because in the moment you're just pissed, right? And he was able to keep his energy high. And actually, that same day, a few hours later, two clients that he wasn't expecting to called, and he got two listing opportunities that were bigger than that one. And so, you know, you just don't know where things are going to come. And if we're so attached to this one way of doing it, we may close ourselves off to something else.
Ooh, that's so good. And I think about that when you were talking about the big dreams and dreaming big. If we
Mhm.
think about, this was my mantra 2 years ago, when one door closes, another door opens. However, like you said, and I just wrote this down, this happened, but something else is going to come. If we can have the wherewithal to say, okay, that door closed, I'm not going to stand there and beat my head against it. I'm actually going to turn around and see what else is out there. That's the key, is to really dream bigger than that door, which your client did.
Yeah. And it's so hard in the moment, right? That door closes. You've been trying to walk through it for so long. You want to go through that door, but you're not going to see the other door behind you that opens if you're so fixated on that one. So it's a beautiful way of saying it.
Well, let's talk about, I know one of the things that really excites you is the power of intuition. Will you tell us more about that, please?
Yeah. So intuition is that inner voice that we all have that we might ignore from time to time that sort of tells us what the best direction is. So maybe it's when you meet your spouse, people say, I just knew he or she was the one. That arguably is your intuitive knowing that says, yes, go down that path. And if you've ever had an experience where you think of someone and then they call you, or you call them and they said, oh, I was just thinking of you. These are these little intuitive events where our body and our mind are connected and know what the best action is for us. However, because we're so busy and we're running around and sending messages and answering calls, we often forget to listen to that inner voice. You've probably also had the opposite experience where you knew this was the right thing to do and you chose to go over here, and it ended up being a little bit of a mess. And so if we can start to tune into that little voice, whatever it is for you, some people hear something, some people see something, some people just know the right action. We can eliminate a lot of
Morning,
overthinking
guys.
Oops, sorry.
and over analyzing by connecting into that little voice. Some people call it God, some people call it source. I call it intuition. But really, by connecting with that, we can find a different way of navigating.
Hmm. So, what would be some tips? Because I'm feeling this. Like when you said that, I actually started to allow myself to be more open. In our regular day, when we are so busy, what are some tips to kind of reconnect us to our own intuition so we can actually hear it? How do we do it both?
Yeah, yeah. How do you do that? Yeah, so intuition is almost like a muscle. It's something that most of us haven't used in a long time. I was very disconnected from my intuitive knowing, and as I've been practicing, I now really am able to say, okay, is this the right thing? Yes, no, and move in the direction easily. The first thing to know is if you're thinking and analyzing, it's probably not your intuitive knowing at that point. You've bypassed it already. And so, a couple of easy ways to sort of build the muscle are just simple questions of yourself. Do I want milk in my coffee or do I want cream? Do I want tea or coffee if you're not, sure which beverage you want? Just little choices like that to start to help you tune into, okay, how do I know I want tea this morning or coffee this morning? Which one, how does my body speak to me? How does my mind speak to me? And so doing little yes, no kind of decision point questions like that are very low stakes.
Right.
You're not asking yourself some high life or death situation when you have not connected with your intuition in a long time, and building from there, because you may already be very connected with it and you don't even know. You just know that you know the answer. And so just really reflecting would be the first step, and then taking these little things. Another way you can do it is if you are a meditator and you close your eyes and you start meditating, you can kind of feed yourself different things that may be true or not true. So if you close your eyes and you say, like I would say, my name is Emily, I feel something in my body when I say that, versus if I close my eyes and I say, my name is Christiana.
Right.
How do I feel when I say those two things, one of them being true and one of them being not true, and then bringing that into our life?
That's so good. And it's so simple to do. I'd love to hear from those of you who are on this call. Is there anything that your intuition is guiding you towards that you might not be listening to? Put those in the chat. We want to see what you have, what you are all hearing out there. That's lovely. And I know, Christiana, you had mentioned that you are an analytical mind. So I would imagine for you, which I think to me, that's like having the best of both worlds. You have the analytical mind, so you can really get into the data, do the thinking, but then you also have this other side of yourself to where you're able to stay open. What does it look like for you? Do you find yourself going towards the analytical first or the intuition?
I would say now I try to start with the intuition and then back it up with the analysis. But I also know that I have that tendency to analyze to the point of complete paralysis. And so being aware of where that limit is. I saw someone mention they use their intuition for pricing a property. Your
Yes.
client is probably not going to be satisfied with you saying, I used my intuition and I came up with a number. They're going to want to see the market analysis and why you chose this number. And so we have to balance that analytical, practical, structural strategy with the more flow, intuition, sort of gut knowing, that balance. And so that's going to be different for everyone. Old me would have analyzed from the first moment there was the opportunity. I used to joke that if there was a Mr. Excel, I would have been married to him because I loved Excel so much. And that very clear, answer, but it's much more
Uh-huh.
nuanced than that.
That's hilarious. I love that. You would have been married to Mr. Excel. Oh my goodness.
It's going to end up in everyone's notes on the.
Yes, that and of course the reference of you being like Wendy from Billions.
Yes.
Oh, this is so good. I also let's talk a little bit more about something that you really feel strongly about is continuing to have the high achievement, to be able to perform at like a high performance level, but also keep your stress low. That is to me one of the hardest things to accomplish. I have a hard time even wrapping my head around it. Will you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So I think we all have this story that we've put into our minds that in order to be successful, I have to be stressed. And the
Yes.
more successful I am, the more stressed I get, right? I see that all the time. And that used to be a belief of mine as well. And so if we can say, well, why is that true? Why does more success necessarily have to mean more stress? And the answer is it doesn't. We can set up our business in a way that we have boundaries around what we are willing and not willing to commit to. Now, does that mean you're just going to sign off on Friday afternoon and not turn your phone on again until Monday? No, but there are certain things that we can put in place around when we are going to answer the phone and when we're not. A lot of people like to do time blocking, for example. Now I'm doing this now, I'm going to do that now, I'm going to do this now. And that works for a lot of people, but it's also bringing in these other things that can help us alleviate some of the rigid structure that we've put into our businesses. So things like the intuition, things around dreaming, I think just having a dream and understanding why you're doing what you're doing in this moment can help alleviate some of the stress of that moment because you're now working towards something bigger. And so identifying how can I be building towards something so that what I'm doing in this moment does not feel as stressful as it would if I was just grinding and running all of the time.
Oh, yeah, that's the key.
Mhm.
It's truly
Mhm.
the key.
You want that?
Oh, we'll mute whoever that was too.
And I think, Emily, you're a meditator as well. Having those types of practices, especially in the morning, to ground ourselves and to start off our day from a place of calm and presence. And I saw someone else say gratitude, so
Mm.
that that can carry forward through our day, so that when we do have those ups and downs that are inevitable in this business, we've started off from a place of saying, hey, I'm grateful, I'm present, I'm connected to this moment, and I'm not running like a chicken with my head cut off all the time. So when this next thing happens, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back and I lose it on a client or on another agent. And so putting these practices into your life are also a way that we can make our business less stressful.
Oh, it's so true. And you think about the simple acts of setting up your morning in a way that's mindful, that perhaps has meditation, journaling, gratitude, whatever those pieces are, reading from a book, whatever the pieces are for you that can help set your mindset up from the beginning of your day. It seems like, I remember I used to think, well, that doesn't matter. That can't make a big difference. It makes all the difference in the world for the remainder of the day and the way your day plays out. And you're right. Every day is going to have the ups and downs, regardless. We are all human, we're here. So to have those practices in place are really important. What are your practices in the morning?
So as far as in the morning, my phone is in another room. So I don't see my phone until I come out of my bedroom and I see it later. So I think that's a big one, because if we're answering our phone and immediately turning on, the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to feel stressed and behind right from moment go. So that's a big thing for me. When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is a brief gratitude practice, just that I'm thankful for today and for this life. And then depending on Ben and I alternate on who gets to go to the gym first thing in the morning. So if I'm going to the gym, I go to the gym. If I'm not, I do my meditation practice right then. And if I'm going to the gym, I flip it. But really for me, movement is a big part of who I am. It's very important for me to be moving my body on a regular basis. And I see meditation as the exercise for my mind. And so I need to do that practice of centering and focusing my mind, because otherwise I'm thinking about all of these other things and analyzing as we've discussed. And so those are the practices that I find I need to do each
Mm,
morning.
that's great. This has been this has been so good. I want to know if somebody on this call is interested in learning more about you, potentially your success coach business. Where do we find you? Where do we go to find out more about you or to connect with you?
Sure. So the best place is my website. I can put it in the chat. It's just
Great.
christianaserle.com. I know that's a lot of spelling of words. um, but if someone wants to connect with me, you're interested in what we've discussed today, you're kind of tired of running through life with an empty battery and wanting to grow your business without stress, as we talked about, I do offer a free success call where we can just hop on and for about an hour discuss what you are going through in your business and how I see that process and how I can help if that is something that I'm able to help you with. And so if that's something that's of interest, I'll type that in the chat in a second. But that's just a great way for us to get to know each other and go from there if it's a fit. And if it's not, I'll give you my best advice and we'll move on from there.
I'm going to put this in the chat for you so you can
Okay.
continue to chat here. Well, I love that you offer that. Oh, good. Delisa is going to give you a call.
Okay.
Uh,
Perfect.
there
There's
is her website in the chat. Oh, thank you. We both did it at the same time. That's great. Um, I'm
link.
super excited. I love that you give that opportunity to actually, I think that's so important to give the opportunity to actually speak to you and see if it is the right fit before you get into and do business and coaching together.
Right.
Do you have a few more minutes for us?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so we usually end our calls with these what's called the rapid 6 at 6. And it's literally 6 easy questions. Hi,
Okay.
Bucky. My dog's here. 6 easy
Oh,
questions about you where we get to know you a little bit better. Sound
okay.
good? Okay.
Who's that?
This is Bucky. This is the 7-month-old puppy that has endless energy.
Seriously.
Okay. How would you describe the most perfect day?
And I'm supposed to do it in one word?
No, no,
Did I
no.
make that up?
It's
Okay.
just a quick answer. And it
Okay.
doesn't actually have to be a quick answer because that's a big question to ask.
The most perfect day for me would be a day where I get to spend the majority of it outside being active with my family.
I love that. If you could time travel anywhere in space and time, so to your future, to the past, when and where would you like to go?
I would go back
But
and
not
meet
this
my
one. Well, we
grandparents.
have to wait. Isa says, does
Sorry,
it make you
sorry,
birthday?
hold on. Mute. There we go. Okay.
Someone got very excited.
Yes.
I would go back. I'm very interested in the concept of how our family lineage affects who we are today, even if we didn't meet these people. So the concept of epigenetics, for example. And so I would be interested to go back to when my grandparents were young, maybe mid 20s, early 30s, and just talk to them about their mindset, what their growing up was like, what it was like having their parents, because my grandfathers on both sides, one of them I never met, and one of them passed when I was 4 or 5. And then my grandmothers I knew, but you're so young, and so I just like to have that opportunity.
That's so cool. I said that to somebody yesterday. I would love to go back in time and meet my mom as a little girl. I would
Yes,
love to see that. All right. What is something that you would love to master?
I would love to master. Ooh, I am taking Tai Chi
Ooh.
classes right now, and so I'm sorry, Qigong. I would love to master, which is similar but different. And so I would love to master Qigong. And specifically, I would love to be able to see auras. And
Ooh.
if you're not familiar with an aura, I think you probably are, but the energy around people, that's something I have some members of my family that are able to see them. And I would love to be able to see them as well.
I have this actually sitting right next to me. We have a woman in town who takes aura photographs.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
cool. And she reads them?
And then she reads them. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yes. Mine is over there, actually.
That's so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
All right. What is either a book or a podcast that you love to go back to over time?
So I have been very interested in Joe Dispenza's work recently. His books can be a little bit dense on the scientific side, so I would recommend any podcast where he is the guest. There's one that he's on the Lewis Howes School of Greatness podcast that I've gone and revisited that several times. I actually am a big fan of the Women Who Run with the Wolves author.
Yes. Carissa?
Larissa Pinkola Estes.
Yes.
Her work very much speaks to me. And right now I'm listening to a program that she did on the wise woman and how culturally we're very afraid of aging. And yet what we can learn from the elders in our society is very deep and inspiring. And so I'm very into her work.
Ooh, that sounds great. I've not heard of that. I'll have to look that up.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. All right. Who was your first celebrity childhood crush?
Oh, Brad Pitt. For sure.
There we go. You didn't take any time to think about. You didn't need any time to think about that.
No, my friends, if they were on here, I had posters